Hi. I wanted to do this chapter given the present status in the Senate with the Democrats and Republicans being tied at 50 seats each. Well, that's counting the independents as siding with the Democrats, which is probably a reasonable presumption. And as you likely know, in that situation, the vice president will cast the tying vote for any point of controversy. So the Democrats effectively will have a majority vote in the Senate, but for reasons that I'm about to describe, that does not necessarily give them power over all bills to pass. And the reason for that is an issue called the filibuster. The rules of the Senate allow any member of the Senate to debate any proposed bill indefinitely. And the way in which, and that is called a filibuster when it is done to thwart the passing of any relevant bill. The way in which the filibuster can come to an end is what creates the controversy. There's a motion that is required to end that debate called a closure motion, which, as you'll note in the summary below, is spelled with a T as opposed to an S, but pronounced closure. And a 60% majority is required to effect the end of the debate by the closure motion. The reason for that is based on a rule called Rule 22 of the Senate, which has existed for many years, but hasn't been around forever. Excuse me while I just check my notes. The actual rule of the Senate was introduced in 1806, and before that date, a simple majority vote was all that was required to end debate and force a bill. There have been attempts to end the 60% rule, but ironically, for the Senate to vote on eliminating the closure rule, filibuster would also come into effect, and again, a 60% majority would be required to pass that bill. So that's the problem we have. However, there's something else that we'll discuss in a minute, which is based upon the Senate precedents. So the procedures of the Senate is determined by the rules of the Senate and also by the precedent decisions made in the Senate. Let's look at the ways in which filibuster can be avoided. The first is where all members of the Senate consent to a vote to be held, and for that, to a vote on the bill to be held, and for that there is unanimous consent required, which from time to time is given. There are exceptions that have been created. There are two specific exceptions created in 2013 and 2017 by which the Senate determined that on specific bills, the time for debate can be limited by a 50% vote. The links are below. These options are called going nuclear, and the appointment made by the Republican Senate in the appointment of Neil Gorsuch, the Supreme Court judge, was done by a simple majority in that manner. What the procedure is that one of the senators raises what is called a point of order, and if the presiding officer, which not necessarily is a senator, there's a parliamentarian in charge of the Senate, but if that person agrees to the point of order being voted on, that ruling creates a precedent. And the precedent was used in 2013 and 2017 to pass two pieces of legislation. And again, the links are below. And it was limited to those individual situations, which allowed a simple vote. There are other ways in which steps can be taken to avoid closure, and one of them deals with a bill which by itself requires only a simple majority to pass. These are generally limited to non-budgetary budgetary issues that have been determined by that piece of legislation previously to be subject to a 50% vote. But what happens from time to time is that the party in control of the Senate will add what may be a non-budgetary issue to a budgetary bill. And this allows the matter to be subject to a 50% vote. The critical aspect is that the parliamentarian in charge of the Senate has the decision to make as to whether there is such a component to a budgetary bill being added, and that if so, he can refuse the majority vote, he or she. But so the strategy becomes one of the party in power looking for someone as the parliamentarian who is has a liberal-minded view to assist it in passing substantive legislation to the budgetary bill. But that's unlikely to happen, and the nuclear option is unlikely to happen on a global scale as opposed to individual bills. And the reason for that is that, yes, the Democrats do control the Senate today, but as we know, the Senate is elected, the composition of the Senate changes every 2 years. 1/3 of the senators come up for re-election every 2 years. So 2 years from now, what is a thin majority now for the Democrats may be a thin majority for the Republicans. And the Democrats have to be careful as to what they wish for, as it may come back to haunt them 2 years from now. So it's very unlikely that the Democrats will try to change the filibuster rule completely. They may do it on individual items, as was done in 2013 and 2017. But I suspect it will not be changed completely.